You are now tuned into The Breakdown with Carlos Cote.
Welcome to The Breakdown Podcast. I am your host, Carlos Cote, and today we're going to break down the Jackson 5. Jackie, Tito, Marlon, Jermaine, and Mike. Now, in this podcast today, we're going to go over 5 things that you may or may not have known about the Jackson 5. But before we get into that, I just want to say one of the things that has always amazed me about the Jackson 5. We all know the hit records and whatnot. We all seen them on television, whatever. But the thing that amazes me about the Jackson 5 is actually the pre-Motown days. And let me explain myself a little bit, right? Because you know how you go to a nightclub to check out the band, right? Well, these cats at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old were getting paid to play in nightclubs as children. It's very prodigious how bad these cats was and stuff like that. Denise Williams, the great stylist of song, singer of the songs, Free and It's Gonna Take a Miracle, all the hits records she had, Too Much, Too Little, Too Late, with Johnny Mathis, who is from Gary, Indiana. She said one time, she says, people just didn't want to get into talent shows or the stuff around that local area because everybody knew the Jackson 5 was going to win. You talking about a group that Gladys Knight and the Pips, the OJs, the 5 Stair Steps, the Shy Lights, the Emotions. Everybody knew who the Jackson 5 was. This has got to be understood how bad these cats was before the Motown days, before they even went to Motown. In fact, LaToya Jackson wrote in her book how James Brown used to come visit them at their house in Gary, Indiana. And James Brown in the 60s was, his popularity was big. Very, very big, bigger than a pregnant cow. But with that said, let's get into 5 things you may or may not know about the Jackson 5. Number 1, we all know that Michael Jackson made the robot popular in the 70s. And we all know that he did it when the Jackson 5 performed Dancing Machine. But what you may not have known was Dancing Machine wasn't the first song Mike started doing the robot to. The first song that Mike did the robot to was Papa Was a Rolling Stone from the early 1973. Take a look at this clip. Number 2, I'm sure you know around the time in 1973-74, the Jackson 5 was trying to get off the imperialistic Motown label to give them, so they can get the freedom to write and produce their own songs, but the label didn't allow them that freedom. But what you may not have known is that Mr. Joe Jackson, their fathers, had started his own record label in 1974 called Ivory Tower Records, and he was going to have his sons to play in a Raymond St. Jacques movie called Iceman's Cross and Sons, and the movie was about slaves fighting for their freedom. How ironic. But for some reason, some perfidious people destroyed Joe Jackson, Mr. Jackson's label and the movie. But however, here's Michael on Soul Train from 1974 talking about that movie.
Yes, my name is David Vincent, and is it true that you and your brothers will soon be making a motion picture?
Yeah, we started in November. Raymond St. Jacques will be producing it, and is supposedly with Bill Cosby and not Liza Minnelli, and Cicely Tyson. We're supposed to do it.
Number 3, Jermaine Jackson was the lead singer and the bassist for the group. He inspired a lot of bass players to play bass, including Marcus Miller. But in fact, while we're speaking about that, I'm sure in the early 70s, Tito and Jermaine had a lot of young brothers with brooms in their hands imitating them. But what you may or may not have known is that Jermaine Jackson was the first famous bass player to sing and play bass live all at one time. And he was doing all this at 16 years old. He had a hard, one thing about Jermaine, what we got to understand, he had a hand in Whitney Houston's success, a hand in Switch's career. But however, Jermaine Jackson's bass playing just goes unnoticed. But think about this, being 15, 14, 16 years old and having to learn the complex bass lines of Wilton Felder or James Jamerson. It's funny how everybody talks about how they love James Jamerson now that he's dead. But here's Jermaine having to learn this guy's material at 15, 16 years old. Number 4, however, as big as the Jackson 5 was, their first 4 songs ever released, I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Saved, and I'll Be There, all went to number 1 on the pop and R&B side. However, in 1970, the group never received a Grammy Award for any of their 4 number 1 songs that was released that year. In fact, the Jackson 5 has never won a Grammy Award. So Curtis Mayfield, Diana Ross, Snoop Dogg should all feel in good company. And to put salt in the wounds, check this out. The Jackson 5, out of all their hit records, Never Can Say Goodbye, Get It Together, Dancing Machine, Looking Through the Window, Just Mama's Pearl, all the hit records that they had, they only had received 2 nominations for a Grammy. Number 5, Marlon Jackson. Out of all the Jacksons, Marlon is the only one to do an album all by himself. Marlon had produced and recorded with the great late Betty Wright, and he produced Janet Jackson's 1984 hit, You Don't Stand Another Chance. But it was 1987, Marlon dropped his first album, Baby Tonight, which had the hit Don't Go, which went to number 2 on the R&B charts. But what made Marlon outshine all his brothers is the fact that he could have gotten Babyface, L.A. Reid, Jam and Lewis, or any big time producer at that time to do his album. But the fact that he done his whole album, his first album all by himself, is what made him stand out to me, just outshined all his siblings. Here's a clip of Marlon talking to Smooth Donnie Simpson about his album.
I started writing the material for the album in January of '86, because December of '85, my Synclavier was shipped to the house around Christmas. And when I got back off my Christmas vacation, I headed right for the studio, and the whole year of '86, I just played with my Synclavier and just started writing songs on my album.
You should probably tell people what the Synclavier, well, I've always heard Synclavier or Synclavier, doesn't matter, but it's like the most advanced keyboard.
Yeah, it's all digital.
In the world.
It's all digital. It's a digital keyboard, and I can do computerized. I can do just about anything I want with it. Play drums, strings, horn. The whole album was done with the Synclavier.
That's the only instrument you used?
That's the only instrument I use. I played the DX7 from it because I like the action on the keyboard better. Mm-hmm. When I say action, some keyboards play a lot, the keys bounce back quicker or some of them bounce back slower. Mm-hmm. And I use some other sounds from some other different keyboards, but the Synclavier was the main instrument to run the whole project.
This thing is also like a recording board, isn't it?
That's what it is. It's actually digital recording. You can record right directly into it, and you can record your voice into it, whatever you can imagine. And it's also the recording sampling. See, 50K, well, that's a whole different technology. I have to get into that.
Yeah, I was hanging with you for a minute, but I said, uh-oh, 50K, he's going to lose me.
No, my Synclavier is a great unit, and not too many people have them. One thing that I'm very thankful is that the 3 members of my family have a Synclavier, and that's Michael, Randy, and myself. And the units they're great. I can't. It wouldn't be no other keyboard that I would use. It's a great unit.
For mothers and fathers out there viewing, thinking about going out to buy one for little Junior this weekend, it was about $65,000, something like that.
Nope.
How much?
My keyboard cost me $350,000.
Ooh. I was a little short.
And it goes.
$350,000.
Yes. He's looking at me. Well, it's worth it. To me, it's worth it because I'm in the business.
Yeah.
And that's why I bought it, because I can do my albums and it can, you know, cut my budget down and I can do other things. And it's paid for itself by the publishing off the songs that I've written already. So that's the way I look at it.
These things have, technology has changed so much. It's put a lot of people out of work, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it has.
first it was the drummers that went when the drum machine came out. And they go, well, why should I hire a drummer when I can get this, I bring my own drum machine in, I can program it at home, don't have to work this stuff out when I get into the studio.
Got it.
Don't have to hear it talking back to me, and it never gets tired. But now it's gone beyond that. I mean, you don't need to bring in a string section anymore. You don't need anything.
You know, years ago, there was a keyboard called the Chamberlain, and I don't know if people are familiar with it, but the union stopped it. It used to do, you can do strings and whatever, and the union had stopped it, but it's out of control now. They can't do anything because it's technology. Not only is the synclavier is good in music, but it's good in film and whatever. I mean, you can do video and lock up frames with the synclavier. Anything you want to do is possible with the unit.
This song on here, on your album, Where Do I Stand?
Oh.
The duet with, not Saida Garrett, that's your brother. Is it Vesta Williams?
Oh, that's, no, that's Something's Coming Down.
Oh, okay.
Something's Coming Down.
Okay, I'm getting mixed up. But this ballad,
Where Do I Stand? Oh,
which
you
is
like
real
that,
pretty.
huh?
Oh, I like that a lot. And, I mean, the strings in there, man, are just killing. And there aren't strings at all, really. I mean, that is the synclavier, too.
No, the strings on there is from the Fairlight and real strings mixed in together.
Oh, so it, okay.
I wrote the, well, this is a different story. I wrote all the songs except one, and I produced the album and played majority of the instruments.
Wow, you did a great job. The song you...
Well, that wraps up this podcast. I want to thank you for listening to The Breakdown. And till next time, I'll leave you in the same way I greeted you in. Peace.